started building a lot of cutting boards, roughly 30. I think that will be the amount. And I'm sure that many of you have seen gazillion videos about crosscut sleds, which I will build on this video, the one you see in front of me. The problem I had was that many of the videos I've seen are always about this ultimate crosscut sleds with all the bells and whistles. And I will probably eventually build one, just out of interest, because I want to do so, but for this immediate need for finishing up these boards, I just needed to build something very quickly to get the job done, so I didn't really want to spend days and days building this ultimate crosscut sled using fancy wood. So on this video I will show how to build this very simple one, which actually took less than an hour for me to build. It gets the job done, it does very straight cuts, and I know there's these versions where you do the 5-cut method and get the angle like super straight. I didn't do that. I did the quick and dirty version, which I still think makes a very straight cut. So if you want to see how to build a very simple version, this one here, enjoy the video. Everything starts by making the base, which I'm doing from eucalyptus plywood, 18 millimeters. And the size depends obviously on your needs. So if you know that you only use it for cutting very small parts, there's no need to make it as big as possible. But the one I'm building here, I will use it for many different things, so that's why I went for basically the full size, matching the size of my Laguna table saw, which is something like 110 centimeters times 86, if I remember correctly. For this sled I'm using cheap materials. Here I am doing the back support piece, and I'm using this pretty cheap construction post, which is basically just a big piece of plywood when you look how it's built. The main reason was price. I wanted to do this cheap. The other reason is that I had it readily available, and as it's basically plywood, I don't need to think about wood movement. So for this application I think it's a good material to use. To attach the back support to the sled, I'm using countersink screws and getting them in from the underside. It's not super important to get this absolutely straight, since this is just a support piece, it won't be used for aligning any cuts. So to keep things simple, I'm just aligning it with the edges of my plywood, and as you can see I'm using clamps here to hold it steady while I'm doing the countersink screwing, but nothing special about this process, so quick and easy, as has been the idea of this whole build. And here you can see how the structure looks now. So basically it's one piece of plywood with this back support piece on it. Now there are kind of two options for the next phase. You can build your own runners, you can use hardwood if you want. I've done that in the past, it's not super hard, but obviously it takes some adjustment to make sure that the runners fit exactly to your table. So in my case I ordered the cheapest runners from Temu. Amazon is not really that well available in Finland, so use whatever you have, but I think these only cost like €5 or $5, so very cheap runners, but they do the job well. So after getting them out from the box and taking out this one piece that I don't really need with this sled, I'm using the traditional method of putting something in the slot to raise them up, because I think that's the easiest way to attach these to your sled. So use something, can be coins, can be whatever, to raise them up. Then I decided to add just a small amount of CA glue on both of the runners, and then spray the activator on the sled, so you know how that works. So with the activator it dries up very quickly, so Obviously very important now when you put the sled on the runners is to make sure it's aligned well with your table saw, because any mistake here will be pretty hard to fix afterwards, but it's not that hard. Especially if you build a smaller version, it will be even easier, but even with this kind of full-size crosscut sled, it was easy one to get it aligned and make sure everything stays nice. Just to make sure that glue has enough time to dry, even with the activator, I added some weight and I let it stand there for maybe 1 or 2 minutes. For weight, I used just whatever I had, so putting on some drills, and then as I am in the process of making cutting boards, those are actually pretty heavy, so they seem to be a good option as well to add some weight to it, but I mean, just give it a bit of time. 1 minute should be plenty enough for the CA glue to fully dry and be attached. Then flip it over and permanently add the runners to your sled by using screws, and obviously make sure that they are short enough so that they won't come through from the other side. Then it was time to start working on the front support piece, and with this one it is very important to make sure it aligns well with your table saw blade. Before doing that, it is a good idea to add a small chamfer to the piece, because then you will have some place for the dust to go while you are actually using the sled. Because without it, there is a risk that the dust will start piling up and it will actually misalign or make a bit of an angle to your pieces. So very easy and simple to do, but it will actually make sure that your cuts will be straight when you are using it. The simple way I use to make sure that the front support piece aligns well with the table saw blade is by very carefully lifting the blade through the plywood and making a cut close to the front, but not going through it yet because it's not attached yet. And then by using a speed square and making sure that it aligns with the front support piece and the cut line left by the table saw blade, that will give me almost exactly 90 degrees. So I mean, this is the part where you can do this simply, and I think this gives you very straight cuts, and it only takes a minute or two to align them. There is the more advanced version of doing the 5-cut method, and for example, if you want to see how it's done, search for Jonathan Katz-Moses Crosscut Sled videos. He explains very well how this phase can be done even more accurately with the 5-cut method, but in my case, I just wanted to get it very straight, very quickly, and this is a good method for achieving just that. Like before, I am attaching it from the underside, so on the previous phase you saw me just putting one screw in to make sure that it will stay there while I flip it over and have it permanently and properly attached. And a very strong recommendation to add something to the back to show where the blade is actually coming out, so this will make sure that you always remember where not to put your fingers. With that done, the sled is almost complete. Then the only thing left that's kind of mandatory obviously is to cut through the whole thing to make sure that you have a nice slot for the blade to go through when you are actually using it. Now you might see that my cut line goes very close to the top section of the front and back support, and I actually did add a extra support piece after finishing this sled. That obviously depends on the material you have available, so just in case you end up in a similar situation, you can always add more support pieces if needed, but a smart one would of course think about this beforehand and actually measure how high the blade raises and make sure that the material you use for the front and back support are tall enough so that you wouldn't need to add more to make sure it stays in place. So that was my mistake, but very easily fixed, so no real issues here. Now, as I was finishing up the sled and adding paste wax to make sure it glides well, I had a visit from a bee. And you can see how well I actually managed that situation, so that's good timing from the bee to come and visit, and you see how much I actually like those little creatures. So like a true warrior and a knight, you see I have my weapon ready if the vicious beast comes to harass me again. So yeah, nothing really happened with that one, but I actually got stung by a bee a few weeks ago, so I guess I'm still remembering that very well, looking at how I reacted when it came and flying over the thing. But anyway, adding wax is a good idea. It makes sure that the sled actually slides well, and with that one you are basically done with the build. So as I didn't really calculate, but I think it took probably like 30 to 40 minutes for me to build this entire thing. So very, very quick to do, and it does the job very well, I think. I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, a subscribe and a like will be useful and very helpful. And a build video of those cutting boards is coming, where I actually use this sled very, very much. So thank you and goodbye.